And it's important, I guess, for us in our business management too. So,
Yo, what's up, y'all?
what's up?
So we're here talking smack. I was actually just having a conversation with Chris here with Juniper, I think is what they call the voice. They have a couple different voices. So Juniper is the one that is, I think, the default one.
Okay.
So they have one that's like an English gentleman. They have like all American.
I feel like I would have it
dude.
Winnie the Pooh.
They have an Australian chick.
That would be fun.
No, yeah. So they have a couple different.
Crikey.
Yeah. Shrimp on the bobby. Anyways, welcome. This is the Anomaly Podcast until we figure out another name. My name is Gus.
I'm Chris.
And we're just kind of chopping it up, talking about things that are happening out in the ether that do affect, I think, everybody. Mm-hmm. And we're just trying to have like some civil conversation about what everything that's the crazy that tends to happen in the world. And right now, we were talking with ChatGPT to just kind of get its take on, the purpose of the Fed and, whether or not, should it exist or not, and how it impacts, the global economy and fiat currency versus, asset-based currency, so on and so forth. And it had some interesting, I wouldn't say thoughts, but had some interesting comments on those things. Right now, we had a pretty bad jobs market report that came out that is really, I think is concerning because, it's like a less than half of what was expected. I believe it was. It was. I think they were expecting over 180,000 jobs or 170,000 jobs, and it was like 75,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Like that. So that is definitely disconcerting that the jobs market is slowing down that much. The question, I guess, is that just sort of a blip, or is that like a trend?
Well, they also readjusted the last two trailing months too, right? Like from, what was it, 150 almost each month to like 15?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Could it be a blip? Could it be just like something that's just generally happening that we might see a blip of a month or two of just like people just not hiring, and then things get back to normal, or are trend at a different rate? Or is that like, do you think this is like the beginnings of a major crisis about to come down?
I think that this is, truthfully, I think that this is tied to the uncertainty that businesses are facing right now with tariffs specifically, or just trade, just kind of like trade wars, if you will, with importers and stuff. GDP came in at like negative 0.5% growth or something like that. But that was like bolstered by imports dropping. So like we had more net exports hitting the GDP line. So I feel like it's,
and just for clarity, negative GDP growth is losses.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So
it's just funny the way that the way that it's framed.
Yes.
It's like, oh, we have negative GDP growth.
Yes.
You mean losses?
Losses? No. It's just slower than normal growth. The tortoise was beating us there. So I really think that it has a lot to do with just the global economic uncertainty from a business standpoint, with like these tariffs on, tariffs off. What is products going to cost? What's that going to do to supply chain? Do we need to hire more people, or are we going to have to contract? That's really what I think. I think it can be pinned to uncertainty.
Now, what do you think about this idea? Because my understanding was that, the tariff scenario started back in, was it March? I think it was March. And the anticipation was
that's when he announced, but it was like a 90-day window, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that's when the initial announcement happened, and then that was your window of time to figure out what they were going to do. And so there were a lot of importers that bought extra stuff, figuring that, oh, well, if they buy stuff after that window and that hasn't been figured out, things are going to be more expensive. So at least that's what was the implication. Everyone talked about, I can't believe I didn't put this on Do Not Disturb.
I should probably.
Shut your face. Everybody talked about, when I say everybody, but the news media and, a lot of the people kind of projecting what could potentially happen with tariffs was that come June, we were going to hit, that we were going to start feeling the tariffs. We were going to start feeling that in the economy. The average person would start feeling things are more expensive and stuff like that. And while things have gotten slightly more, like a certain few things have gotten slightly more expensive, like, have you seen anything in terms of like like things that you've purchased more expensive, like that noticeably?
I mean, I recently haven't been spending a whole lot outside of like basic needs, like at the grocery store.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean,
because a lot of stuff is like the vegetables and stuff like that are imported, and there's a lot of food that comes imported.
I'm gonna say that like when it comes to like me being able to say like specific things or are they more expensive or not, like I don't really shop like that. So like as far as like a unit or specific things to point out.
But my point
is, my overall budget, like, I mean, I feel like, I'm definitely spending a little bit more.
But I mean, when you say a little bit more, is it like, oh wow, like I need to make adjustments, or is it just like things are just are slightly more expensive?
I think it's like I probably should make adjustments, but I like my stuff.
That's fair.
Fair
point.
I
guess what I'm trying to get at is that like June and July, we were supposed to see the impacts of tariffs, and we didn't. I don't feel like what I was expecting to see. I saw.
Well, so they talked about the tariffs happening, right? We said March, right? It was like March when he announced it.
Yeah,
it was like in 90 days, right?
And then there would be a delay.
Right. So
there would be a delay.
I think that the thing is, and I don't know if they just didn't create clarity, but that I feel when did the first round of tariffs actually hit? Like around that like 90 day.
I mean, maybe. So you're saying they hit in June, so then maybe they won't necessarily.
I'm thinking that the message that was being said was like Americans are going to feel it, like in their pocketbooks, or feel it in some capacity. And when they say Americans, I feel like that also includes business owners, right? Like who import stuff. So as the end consumer right now, if we're not in the trenches in that business that deals with imports, we might not be feeling that right now, right? Because they're like the front line of that, if you will. But there's still an average American small mom and pop shops and smaller companies. So yes, maybe we would have been feeling it in June if like the tariffs hit and started in March. But if I remember correctly, he announced that they were happening, and then like a few days later, within the week, he announced that he was putting a 90-day.
So you think maybe we'll start feeling them maybe in September?
I think that right now it's a little early to be able to tell, because I wouldn't think that the end consumer, it would get through the supply chain immediately when tariffs hit, because there's just a lag in inventory already that's already priced, right?
Yeah.
And then it coming in. And at the same time, I also don't know if I think that given the landscape that businesses who were importing things would necessarily order that much more import on the heels of thinking it's going to be more expensive when the tariffs hit, unless they already have enough space to store that excess inventory in an amount that actually is meaningful for purposes of the economics of the business. I just don't think that those things really. I feel like if I were a business owner doing that, I don't know if I would weigh the uncertainty of that by loading up on inventory.
So you take the risk of the inventory potentially being more expensive later.
Yes, and I would be working on the internalization of my business, on the economics of if this happens, what does that
How do I adjust?
How do I adjust? Not load up on that. Maybe the forecast is that I can only sell this many, but maybe it's worse than that. Now I'm sitting on inventory, and did I get extra space for it to house it? So I feel that from a business perspective, like when uncertainty arises, less action typically gets taken.
That's true. That's fair.
So
yeah.
I personally think that if we're seeing this in the labor market, I think that, and I don't know all of like how everything gets tailored. I understand that the labor statistics is done by like surveys, both phone call surveys, online surveys. And it's like, if you get the survey, it's up to you as a business owner to provide that information. And I don't know, like if with all of the uncertainty and everything like that, if people weren't as focused on doing those surveys and they were just lagged in doing the surveys, and that's why there is this fairly large adjustment number on the back end. But I'm thinking that businesses just really kind of didn't hire like the forecast was and spent more time trying to figure out what to do when these tariffs potentially hit and how that's going to impact business. So I think that's why we saw a lot of adjustments on the back end. And this particular one, I think that maybe we're just getting more real-time information from the surveys. So more participation.
So the thought process here is that business owners, because there's so much uncertainty, they're not comfortable with making the move of hiring someone because they don't know how tariffs may potentially impact their business.
Yeah.
And therefore, they chose to just not bring someone on, and they'll just wait to hear, like, to see how things play out before they make a decision on. And then in the interim, they're figuring out, well, if tariffs become impactful to my business, how am I adjusting to that?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like businesses would be more likely to just pass on that cost to the consumer, or are they going to like also do something operationally on their back end? Or do you think it'll just be a combination of both?
I think it would be a combination of both, but the pressure is always going to be to put it on the consumer.
Sure.
Right? Because we were kind of having this conversation a couple of weeks ago as far as like how much is too much to like, just because you can raise the price of something, does that mean you really should raise the price of something, right? And that's a whole other conversation. But from a business standpoint, their goal is to make the most,
right, to optimize
profits, right, against expenses and that stuff. So as the business owner, as the operations person, the person who would be leading the company, I would be looking at my economics as like, if how elastic is the consumer to my prices, and if I sell it here, how many units do I think I can sell, and does the volume of that bundle outweigh selling it at a lower price? Because if it does, if I can still make it and still bat higher, even though the pool of people I'm selling to is smaller, it still makes sense for me to do that, right? So I think short answer, I think that the companies are always going to work, whether consciously or subconsciously as well, in capacity to put that cost off on the consumer.
Right. I mean, that is the purpose of having a business. So I mean, that makes sense.
And then so I think that this is where the conundrum is, because then the onus comes on the consumer as as like a unit, if you will, to push back against pricing based on consumer behavior. But I feel like we're in such a unique point in time and just how our economy runs that like there's a lot of things that are just really price inelastic. Is that the right? I always get elastic and inelastic.
Give me an example of what you mean by that.
Like they're staying, like food prices are high right now, right? But you can in general, you can't not eat. You have to buy groceries, right? Now, as individuals, we can pick and choose which ones we do, and which ones we don't. But there's going to be like those staple things in that basket where it doesn't matter unless it's just astronomical. And then you go from, eating hamburger helpers to like, eating pieces of cheese, something to that degree. Like I just lost my train of thought, man.
Are you trying to? I guess I'm trying to get clarity on like.
Oh, elastic and inelastic.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be things that doesn't matter what the price does. You're still in a position to have to get it.
Yes.
So you're gonna have to cut out. So you have to cut elsewhere. So it's like those prices are really sticky. So like,
but do you feel like they're sticky because of the way that because they're needed in society, or do you feel like they're sticky because there is an appearance of choice, but really all of the conglomerates have different, like you have like these like General Mills, right? Like they have
so many more brands than you realize that they own.
Yeah, they own a ton of brands, and then you think you have a choice of these 12 different things, and really they're all General Mills, but they're all branded differently
from a different like subsidiary company.
And you wouldn't have known if that was unless you saw the little label at the bottom or you looked it up or something like that, right? So it's like this illusion of choice, and then they're all priced essentially the same because General Mills knows what it's doing, right? So I mean, even the generic brands. Have you seen the generic?
Yeah, typically they're from the same company, and they're just like it's like a knockoff. So I mean, it
looks like a knockoff, but it's
just
totally General Mills with the like, hey, get the cheap artist to go ahead and do the artwork on this.
So I think the truth, in my opinion, the truth to that is that it's marketing psychology. Like we have been, it's just like ingrained in, right? Like, and then you've got. Maybe there doesn't need to be as many bananas, right? Maybe like there could be less bananas because we just don't need that many bananas. But because they can sell this many bananas at this price, unless they can capture so much more market share and make money by selling it at a lower price, there's no reason to change the price. So I feel like prices are very sticky. Once prices go, it's very hard to get prices down. I think that it comes to like that just starts becoming the new normal, and then prices coming down just means they're not growing it. They're not growing.
But okay, so this is I guess my case against that is that with a true like open economy where entrepreneurs get an opportunity to participate on equal footing, right? Let's say I wanted to sell my own cereal. Right. And maybe because I am not a known brand, it'd be difficult for people to buy my cereal because they don't know Gus. Right. I have like Gus's, Flakity Flakes. And then I try to sell you my Flakity Flakes. And you're like, oh, who the heck are Flakity Flakes? I don't know what Flakity Flakes are, whatever. Sounds weird, whatever. Right. So I don't have a lot. I can try to pitch on. I mean, there's a number of different ways that I can try to pitch my brand. Maybe my Flakity Flakes are all organic and natural, and that's the way I try to pitch it. Right, but one of the ways that I can make a case for my cereal is that I can be like, hey, my Flakity Flakes are cheaper than Frosted Flakes, and they are essentially the same. They're both frosted, like with sugar covered flakes. And they taste the same, and I don't have a tiger sitting on my box. But my Flakity Flakes are just as good as the Frosted Flakes, but they're cheaper. So if cost is a concern for you, right? You're cost sensitive, which a lot of folks may be. I can sell to the people who are more cost sensitive through my pricing.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we don't see a lot of new brands necessarily going that route most of the time because those brands, I feel like, get eaten up by the bigger brands before they become real competition.
Well, specifically, so you just mentioned cereal as kind of like, I feel like the widget in this conversation that we're talking about. So
any widget doesn't matter.
I'm going to use cereal because I feel like I've got kids, right? So we're always on the cereal aisle. So I feel like I have a general idea of that. So I do see like smaller companies in the cereal aisle. Their boxes of cereal are like $8 or $9 for like what would be like the normal or smaller box of like a General Mills cereal.
But what are they doing though? What kind of cereal do they have? They're not selling you on price.
I understand that, but I don't know the detailed intrinsics of the economics, but I would assume that if somebody could undercut and sell the big boxes like that they would, or somebody would come in. I think the challenge, maybe why we're not seeing that, is because the economies of scale that are required in order to produce a cereal and at the level and pricing to still undercut the big box and make money enough to justify that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's just a big enterprise, right? Like, I mean, but I don't know. I would think that, General Mills and stuff, they're buying so much stuff. Like, you would either have to, if you were going to undercut that, then you'd have to have massive private funding to carry the company to build the brand to weather those losses until it became. I mean, I feel like that's a big risk to sell at a smaller price. That's just, I'm just spitballing. Like,
I mean, okay, so let's say maybe that's not a good example because that particular type of product is so scaled. Mm-hmm. So maybe something that's less scaled, right? I mean, when you're in a services business are pretty good examples of this, right? Where it's difficult to scale service businesses. So if you're a plumber or an electrician or something like that, if I wanted to compete in a local market against the big plumber that's in the area, I can compete obviously on a number of different avenues, but one of the things that I can do is I can compete on price for sure, because I can choose how much my service is, right? And I'm not going to make as much as the plumber across the street, but I know that I can make enough that it would be worth my time, at least for now, until I can maybe get enough people where I'm so busy that I need to increase my pricing so that it makes some sense to me, right? So, and I think that's possible with some things that's possible. I feel like that's possible even with other widgets. And maybe cereal is not the best example of that, but we just don't see a lot of that in the marketplace. Like, I feel that there is not a strong culture of real entrepreneurism in our country. A lot of what we see is the glossy version of the what it means to be an entrepreneur. So it tends to be it's more trendy than it is like true foundational. Like how can we build this thing, and that it requires work and it's going to be effort and it's going to be grueling and it's going to require grit. And not everyone's built for it. And I would love to see that more integrated into society so that, there is an opportunity for more competition to come into the fray so people can make those kinds of decisions, like to buy the widget that is maybe the more local person or made better or whatever. Like, one of the things that I have a challenge with, let's say cereals as an example, is the use of glyphosate in, a lot of these corporate farms where, glyphosate is a very significant pesticide that has a lot of health concerns for our society. And I mean, it's one of the, if I remember correctly, it's one of the key triggering elements that is tied to things like Parkinson's disease, for example. So I avoid, doing a lot of the things that I see on the shelves because I know that those are problems and I don't want to do those. And I choose to buy the more expensive thing because it's the healthier option. And even those, I don't know how much more healthy it is, but it seems to be at least more healthy than the more traditional commercial, things that are out there. I wish there were more options that were available so that, they can compete against that. and that there was more information about the challenges with the foods that we have. One of the main reasons, for example, that Europe doesn't import a lot of our foods, and Trump was making a big stink about how Europe doesn't take any of our food and blah, blah, blah. Well, the reason why Europe doesn't take a lot of our food is because our food doesn't pass their quality control. Like, it doesn't meet their standards. Like, it's not because they're just choosing not to take our food. Like, they are opting not to take our food because our food is not seen as healthy enough to eat.
Right.
So I feel like that's such a big red flag, and nobody talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I'm not understanding those kinds of things, right? And then here we are trying to have a discussion about how we can bring more competition to the field, give people better choices and stuff like that. And it feels like we don't have real choices. We have this facade of choices, and really we're sitting here kind of choosing from one of 12 different of the same.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think, at the end of the day, I think, we are a nation of conglomerates, right? Like, at the very top of stuff. I mean, I think that we talk about like banks and stuff, like 2008 was the last time, or now it's like, nobody talks really about Amazon, even Apple. I love the two companies. What were the two? Paramount and Skydance, right? This getting bought, but like, I feel like when you start looking at that, like a lot of the stuff, to your point, that we use as a consumer, we think we have all these choices, like, when we really don't. Like, we do have choices, but they're just choices within market segmentation strategies of the company.
Correct.
Of the parent company.
Yeah.
So, is that really a choice? Because one company or one head company gets to decide at some level or another how they vary and what that, and it's all doing it for a general economics. So it's like, they broke up the big industries like the train industries and the oil industries back in, when was that?
Long time. Long time. Yeah.
It wasn't even a thought at that time.
But that's when they really enforce monopoly laws. But they don't really enforce that
really.
And the way that they have it,
it's because of the definition of a monopoly. It's like the most, like, is it really a definition? Like,
well, I'm not familiar with what definition they use, but the way that they frame the businesses so that each of them are their own entity, and even though they're all under one umbrella, the way that they frame them, it doesn't fit the definition of a monopoly, even though it's pretty clear that the overarching organization is the one who essentially, has sway over what things,
So I think one of the big challenges too is that, so one of the things that it has to pass in order to be considered a monopoly is that it has to be proven that it negatively impacts the consumer.
Oh, see, that's not a.
But the onus is on proving that it will negatively impact by the merger or by considering a monopoly to break up. And
so you have to prove a negative.
Yes, you have to prove that it's
likely to have a negative impact.
Yeah, or it's impacting, like, if you think about it, Amazon is the single largest online commerce place.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? You can say Alibaba and stuff, but who the fuck shops at Alibaba over here?
Well,
I mean, some people
in the United States at least.
That's what I'm saying. Here, right?
In the United States, yeah.
So we're like our own airport hub.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Amazon controls this one, but you do have choice. They just don't really sell over here.
It's You got to wait 2 weeks.
It's like Delta in Georgia and United Airlines in Miami, right? And it's like other planes fly, but the mass majority are flying that carrier. So I'm like,
but how do you manage that? Like, how do you? So obviously, Amazon provides a service that people are generally happy with.
I mean, I think it's don't get me wrong. I think it's a great service.
So, I mean, I think people are generally happy with it. And I mean, you could argue that there are other platforms that people can buy widgets off of. I think where it becomes a problem for me is when Amazon does its funny business where it sees something that is profitable, and then it creates its own version of that thing and competes
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Where
Amazon Basics.
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Well, that's their line of stuff.
Yeah. So they will go ahead and say, oh, so let's say you make widgets, and then Amazon sees, oh, that's really profitable. You know what? We're gonna make those widgets too, and we're gonna price just below you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
I think it should be illegal. Like, they have to choose to either be a platform to sell commerce or like a company that sells widgets. Do you see how that? Because what happens is they basically get your model and they're just like, oh, okay, well, we have the funds. We're just going to go ahead and make your widgets and put you out of business.
Okay. Well, then that would be like a spinoff, right? Like, you either do that or you've got to get rid of that business and sell that part of the business off.
I'm not sure I understand.
Just like if you want to continue making like Amazon Basic stuff, like you would have to like separate those books. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, like, how are you going to regulate?
I know, it's impossible.
You can't regulate that. That's like,
you can't.
I want to say, like, is it an infringement on your freedoms?
It's they
you're
they
telling
can choose
you how you can
operate.
Yeah. Where that's not the tool to be used. The tool to be used is then to showcase that they are monopolizing that marketplace, which the onus is on the consumer to prove, which I think is kind of,
it's difficult.
Yeah, because kind of crazy, especially when you understand the basic premise of a free market is that competition drives growth and equilibrium of prices, and an equilibrium between the amount of sellers and the amount of buyers in the marketplace, right? Where each have their respective powers. And it's like, but when you let things merge and you've got like 5 people or things at the top, like, how can that be good?
Yeah.
It's good to an extent, right? Because arguably Amazon would not have been able to do what it has done if it were forced to have broken up 10 years ago.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Same thing with Apple. Apple's ecosystem wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the same thing.
No, here's the thing, like, I think all systems have their pros and cons. So, I mean, even if you go with political systems, right, you could argue that, like, a totalitarian system, there are some benefits to that. And someone might say, well, no, how would you say that there's benefits to that? Well, there is. The benefit to a totalitarian system is if you need to be agile, a totalitarian system can. They can literally just shift on a dime because you have one guy that says, or gal, who says, go this way, and everyone has to go that way.
Yeah.
Right? So in a totalitarian system, like, agility is their advantage.
Right.
Right? In a republic or traditional democracy, like, that's way more difficult to be that agile because you got to get all of these people and representatives and electors to agree to even go that way, right? And then they're going to be fighting as, well, should we go this way, or maybe we should go this way, and
right?
And that could take years before, like, any change happens. Which the benefit of that is that you have a more stable society. Things don't go crazy. Like, people have a kind of a input in what direction things are going in. So there are pros and cons, right? And I think any system has its set of pros and cons. And I think that the Amazon model and the Apple model, the pro for those models, especially as a business, is their ability to just kind of on a dime, just kind of change gears and go in a particular direction, even as big as they are, because they're technology based. There's a lot. Technology-based companies, I think, have a lot more agility than, Now, granted, I guess Amazon is also a logistics company, but they've been able to move pretty fast, all things considered.
I would argue that Amazon is a logistics company.
Yeah.
At the heart of it. I mean, and then they've got AWS, but I mean, that is the single thing that has made them the behemoth that it is.
Yeah. Get your package in 2 days.
Yeah. Like, their marketplace is so fucking efficient. It's such an efficient marketplace.
But that's a technology thing.
Yeah.
So they're both a technology
and a logistics. So you can't build the level of logistics that they have without the technology.
Correct. Like, right. It's all tied together. It's really great. It's a wizardry of magic that's happening there.
You know the story on how you know how Bezos started the company?
With the books?
Yeah. You know why he started it with the books?
I don't remember. I think I heard this, but I don't recall.
He started it with the books because it was a single marketplace of one thing that people could buy with thousands of different SKUs. So it allowed him to take a marketplace that was already active and build the company around, build the logistics around moving different SKUs and shipping different SKUs different places. Because it doesn't matter what the SKU is attached to the product, if you can move the logistics and create the infrastructure,
that
framework, and then move into the other stuff.
Interesting.
Which is what the pivot was.
So he used that because it already had a foundation of SKUs that he could leverage. He didn't have to make the SKUs.
And you have to hold the inventory.
Interesting. Oh.
But I was like, that is just like what a forward way of thinking.
Yeah. He was thinking 4D chess.
Yeah, like very cool.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's why Amazon is what it is.
So
yeah, I'd like to play 4D chess, and here I'm playing checkers.
Well, I got China's checkers. So yeah,
freaking playing Connect 4.
I love Connect 4. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. We ended up on Jeff Bezos.
Well, I mean, I think that the idea is we're trying to figure out what's happening with the economy, and it's all over the place, and it keeps becoming, I think, a challenge both for. I think the biggest concern that I have is for like small business, right, for the economy, because bigger businesses can always consolidate or downsize, right, to be able to still operate. But like,
yeah, their scale is enough to where they can still sell enough and keep afloat.
Correct. They can figure out. Yeah, they can figure it out, and like if they have to.
Yeah.
But like a lot of your mom and pop shops, which are usually the shops that you see in your local plazas and stuff like that. Like those guys don't have that kind of they don't have that kind of flexibility. If they don't make, if they're not able to be profitable, they just close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a scary scenario where, if all we have is Walmart and Walgreens and Amazon, like that is not appealing for me, at least. So I'm always trying to figure out like, well, how can we figure out a way to like make entrepreneurs more impactful, or rather, how can we figure out a way to make entrepreneurship more profitable at the base level, right? Where you're just mom and pop, single solopreneur, whatever the case may be. Are there technologies? Can AI play a role in that? Like, is there leveraging international commerce in some capacity? And for some of that's not going to apply. If you're talking about a plumber, there's no international commerce option. But is there some technology that can help that plumber be better? I guess plumbers and electricians are less likely to have problems because everyone locally is going to need those things. But I would say it would be more for like restaurants, people who sell widgets, people who provide, maybe services that aren't absolutely necessary, but people like to have, right?
I also think like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like if you're talking about like services businesses, like I don't want to say that it's a problem because it's not a problem, but I think that why we might see so many businesses never really like scale to like a decent size just within the local region or the community, right? And you still only have like maybe one, two that you see through. And we're in the line of business where we work for ourselves, right? It's like I think it's, and I deal with this personally, which is where I'm coming from, is that like there's times like when I get there, it's very hard. You own your own business, so you already think yourself as a business owner, but you're running your own business. You're running in your business.
You're the operator.
And I think that, and it could be from a lack of training. It could be from a lack of want. It could just be that, it fills their cup and they don't need any more. But I feel like so many people, so many entrepreneurs, business owners, they get stuck right there, or they stop right there, right? Where it's like they're operating it and they can't get to that next level where they separate themselves from that to where they're they're not operating the business anymore. They're managing the business.
They're managing operations.
And, and their time away, and then buying back that time.
I mean, that's a question of leverage, right? That's getting a clear understanding of leverage. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that I see operators have is they feel that they are the ones who can do it best.
Yes, or their customers want them.
Yeah.
And I always argue they don't want you. They want your processes, your systems, and your experience.
Correct.
It doesn't matter if you replicate that or you deliver that yourself, as long as you tie that to your brand, whatever that brand is.
But I think a lot of entrepreneurs have trouble with that.
I think that's an ego thing, like not a selfish ego. I think it's just kind of like an internal thing where it's like you just like, because you've built it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes I can see it being hard
ego,
to
maybe
separate.
Pride thing.
Like I did this, right, and I'm the one who services or created this, and nobody can do it better than me. Or if I hand it off, somebody's not going to do it right, which they're not going to do it right. There's going to be a learning curve, right? And then you just kind of like this fear of letting go, or this fear of giving up that control. Because,
right.
I mean, you see everything that you had to do to get to where you are, and I can see it being a scary thing, handing that off to somebody.
How do you think? How do you think? In your opinion, like what do you think could happen that would, or that needs to be done to get more people to think, one, to be an entrepreneurial, and two, that it's even possible, and two, to be able to scale beyond that, like I am the owner operator and there is no one else, right? Like I am not a CEO, I am really just an operator of my business. Because I think that's a different position. Like a CEO is someone who's not intimately operating.
Yeah, they're not in the business,
right?
They're on the business. Yeah.
So what do you think would be necessary, in your view, based on your experience as an entrepreneur and whatnot, that you think could influence more people to get into to being an entrepreneur, and to be able to kind of get past that I'm the operator and therefore there's no one else who can operate like I can? Like what do you think is missing there? What's the missing piece? Because I feel like if we can figure that out,
I think
we're trying to solve the world's problem. But
I think that maybe it's a little bit intangible, because I feel like how I'm gonna explain this is gonna make it sound like this is the system that needs to happen, and it's not necessarily a system. I think it's just a shift in, at least at minimum, it's just a shift in conversations and the things we're doing. Like when we're like, it would be great. I think that if we could put it into a system to get people to think that way, more like an entrepreneur, and you wanted to put it into kind of like a structured system, I would say there needs to be some type of class, conversation, or education around seeing opportunity, right? Understanding what opportunity is, like really deep dive into that. I think that more participation in sports or competitive play
interesting.
Also instills that competitiveness, which in like the want to get better, right? Which is a huge, if not one of the most important
that's how you grow
things that you need when you start, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then understanding, going back to, it's not Issey Miyake, that's a cologne. The guy who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And just understanding the 4 quadrants of what is it, employee, owner, business owner, and then like investor or something.
Oh, right.
And you're moving, and with each step, you're taking one step away from the business. Yeah. And so having some type of education or class or something talking about like, that's what business is. Business is, because I remember when I was in business school, I remember them talking about business, and business is something that, provides a good or a service to a consumer through the operations and stuff. But I don't really recall a focus on, as the business owner, like what from entrepreneur to growth, whatever, what should that path trajectory look like? Yeah. Right? From moving, you start the business, you're in the business, you're growing the business. While you're in the business, you're taking that step back. Like the goal is to take that step back. Kind of like how the MREA is kind of, right? Like it's kind of a blueprint of
like how to step out
and become that
CEO.
$1 million agent. So I think that it's just our education system doesn't teach to entrepreneurship. It doesn't teach to that way of thinking. It doesn't teach to that outlook or perspective of the world, right? It teaches more, I would just call it the standard stuff that we which is still important.
It's also I mean the current education system is built on training people how to work in a company.
Work for a company, work as a line. So that's a whole
follow rules and
so it was created during the time of industrialization, which is where you needed 9-to-5 workers,
and you had
traded time for money, which is fine when companies were paying pensions and were taking care of them after employment, which isn't that's a whole nother conversation. But I mean the education system no doubt needs to be I don't like the word overhauled. That sounds reckless. It needs to be restructured and re-looked at for sure. I think your basic building block foundational stuff through like elementary school, right, which is pretty much giving you a very broad understanding of stuff. And then I think that math is very important, whether you use it or not. I think that's something that should be carried through. And then I think history is important, and then maybe a language, and then the other stuff should be really kind of focused on either soft skills or stuff that the student really has interest in, kind of like Montessori style, right?
I can see
so that you start separating people into paths of their interest after building a foundation and still supporting a type of foundation on that path. I think would create a lot of positive changes, because then you'd have more people in areas of passion that they wanted to, and then if you're also giving them the business understanding on how to work that entrepreneurial mindset, I think you start seeing some more people, opening businesses in areas.
How do you figure you get? So I mean, the challenge that I feel like we talk about these ideas all the time, right? Hey, this is not rocket science, right? We're not some brilliant political minds talking here, right? We're literally just two guys who live in Florida talking smack, and so this can't be novel. These are not novel ideas, right? So what is it that's preventing these ideas from getting into like society? Because I can't imagine that everyone is like super excited about our current education system.
Yeah, I think
we've been hearing like a lot of pushback against our education system for a long time.
I just think I personally think that it is just politics, right? And I think that we see it just a lot in our political atmosphere right now, is that like even people who aren't for things are still voting in favor for things or not doing it. I think it just depends also yes, education is important, but it always takes a backseat to something else that's like happening, right? Or it may not be a winning strategy, or to certain special interests or groups or constituents who support whatever candidate is being supported. That's not really a major focus on them, or they're not going to lose enough votes by not doing this. They're going to lose more votes by not doing something else. So now this doesn't get
right,
handled.
Or they don't, or they're going to lose. Go ahead. Sorry.
I would say I just think that first of all we need to determine as a country, as a society, starting I feel like with our representatives, to bring it to the people so that we can have open conversation around it, is what do we want to be teaching our kids in school? Like, we don't want to teach them about homosexuality and the different genders and sexes. Like we talk about like what we don't want to do, right? But it's just like, what do we want to do? Right? Like I with nuances and stuff, I can understand certain things that they're talking about, but it's just kind of like, but if that wasn't in there and you got your way, right? And you didn't want that in there, and then somehow simultaneously the other group got their way and it was in there, and you can both realize, have your cake and eat it too at the same time. Would you make what else would you do to this? Like, what would we be changing about the education system? How would we be? What is the foundational goal structure for now re-educating our children to be the future of the next generation? Like we've got our kids in an educational system that was structured and built around creating employees, line workers, not electric line workers, but just line workers and then pensions and like. But that is not the economy that we are in now.
Right.
There is not going to be those opportunities, right? And you don't really get to specialize into things from a formal capacity like coding or finance or math or psychology or anything like that until like
you're in college. Yeah.
So
that's assuming you go to college.
It's assuming you do go to college, right? And now when time is even more valuable, simply because the amount of changes that happen in such a shorter amount of time, does it not make sense to educate our children? We can't really educate them faster, I don't think, because so much time is already taken.
I don't think it's a question of faster. I think it's just figuring out, what are we doing? What are we?
But when you think about it, like if I were to homeschool my kids, there's like hybrid ones where they can go into a class, but like I've talked to a lot of my friends who homeschool their kids and they like start the learning in the curriculum stuff at like 9 in the morning or like 8 in the morning and they're done before noon.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, that's my schedule doesn't work, unfortunately, for that right now. But I'm like, that's so crazy because I drop my daughter off at school at 8:30 and then she doesn't get out until 2:30. So there's like, and I think it's even earlier than that. They said it's like 2 or 3 hours a day for homeschool. So I'm like, you've got my kid for, what else are you doing for 4 hours?
Well, okay, hold on.
Right.
Hold on. To the like, defense of the school system, not that I like to defend them, but they're also teaching, 15 to 20 kids at the same time. So that the teacher's attention is split amongst all of the kids versus a homeschool where it's a 1-on-1 or 1-on-2, 2-to-1 ratio.
Well, there's homeschools now, to my understanding, where it's just a virtual school online and it's just still a classroom of kids. But I understand what you're saying. My intent is not to discredit the teachers. They work their ass off, and that's
no. I'm not saying
that's a whole other conversation.
I'm just saying that the system itself is more kids that they're kind of like teaching, and they can interact with that time.
Yeah. So I mean,
because we did homeschooling, and even with the virtual, the parent has to be heavily involved. In the learning process.
Yeah.
It's not like, they watch a video and then like, okay, great, let me know what you're doing.
You didn't figure it out?
Yeah, right. Like, we have to be heavily involved in the process. So it does require like an intentional one-on-one with the child who's going through the learning. Mm-hmm. So yes, there is a virtual element and the parent is highly participatory in that process.
I think it would be great if we had some like child education experts and people who were in that field were the ones who were in charge of promoting like I don't even feel like, and maybe it's just because I'm not in their world, but I don't even feel like you hear like them promoting what an ideal educational style system would be.
Well,
right?
I mean, I don't know. I think the challenge with an ideal educational system is that it's probably going to be too diverse for it to like. There are too many variables in the way people learn for there to be one ideal system. So like different kids.
So then wouldn't an answer potentially be to loosen up the requirements of what qualifies for that education to allow more flexibility in schools to deliver a diverse style of education?
I don't
and allow parents.
Possibly. I mean, it depends on what that means. Like
sure, yeah.
Right? Because I mean,
there has to be some.
There may be limitations to what that could, like how that could ultimately be implemented. Mm-hmm. I mean, my thought on that is, it'd be interesting to see like the people that are working in the school system that are making recommendations on education are actively looking at what career paths are available. Mm-hmm. And will be available or at risk, mm-hmm. so that if there is direction for a child, for example, and let's say, let's go back to the old times. Let's say they had a system like that back in the day, and you had a child who was super into the mechanics of horse and buggy, mm-hmm. right? and then Ford is now bringing out their cars.
Yeah.
And there was a person that said, hey, listen, I know that they're leaning into this horse and buggy thing, but really that's not going to be a good direction. If they like the mechanical elements of that, maybe you should learn about motors. Yeah. Right. So then that way that learning isn't about horse and buggy. It's about like how to put horse and buggy together, but how to put together a motor.
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of like it's still in the same realm, but a little bit different because obviously motors are different than horse and buggy. But it would be interesting to see like the people that are that if there were like analysts that looked at what's happening in society, where are there likely to be opportunities, and they'd have to project because there's no way to know. Like, who would have guessed that prompting AI would be a job, right? Nobody really thought about that until it started coming out and then realizing, oh, this is a job. You could actually create a whole job around like prompting AI to do things. So there are things that we're not going to know necessarily are jobs, but if you had someone that could at least say that there's a trajectory. So right now you could arguably say there's a trajectory for some type of green energy that's likely to be a big thing over the next 20 to 30 years. The types of green energy, who knows, but it would be along the lines of probably solar. Wind looks like it's falling apart, but there's other things that are going to be coming up, so maybe that is an industry that might have an interest, and therefore maybe that industry should pay, like maybe a portion of the taxes that they pay go towards that component of education or something to help cover the cost. So it's not just the taxpayer paying it, but industries that will benefit from the workers that will end up working in those industries or something. I'm not really sure what the model would look like, but something along those lines. We need to be thinking more forward. We need to be thinking 4D chess, right? As opposed to reactionary into the things that we're doing now. Yeah. Because society is moving too fast. Very fast. It's moving too fast for us to just react to stuff. It's really a problem. AI is a major issue. I mean, one of the things that they're talking about with the issue with the driving cars is that, if AI takes over driving cars and driving trucks, well, driving vehicles is one of the biggest employers in the country. Like the logistics portion, like that's a major employer, however you look at it, right? Whether that's Lyft or Uber or taxis, chauffeurs, delivery vans, delivery trucks, driving 18-wheelers across country, like all of those things are like, that's a major employer in our country. If that goes away because AI is coming into the fray, like that's a problem. And we need to like be prepared for that. It's not like that's not going to happen. Yeah. You can delay that a little bit, and you can put policy in place to delay it a little bit. And yes, there's going to be time to have to implement all of that stuff. But in 20 years, cars are going to be driving themselves. Trucks are going to be driving themselves. Yeah. So where are those types of jobs going? You know what I mean? Like you got to figure something else out. Like those are not jobs that people are going to be able to sit in anymore. So what are other jobs that could potentially be the case? And maybe it's, visual security on, maybe the job is you're the person who oversees 10 trucks and you're, making sure that there aren't any issues. If anything comes up, maybe you're the one who reacts if a truck gets into an accident or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be, right?
I just think about like, AI is not going to do less. It's always going to end up doing more for us.
For sure.
Right? So like, if we just project that out past 20 years, like there's going to be like, how do you rationalize AI continuing to do more and more for us and not losing jobs?
You don't.
Right? So that's the thing. It's like, so when we look at that point that we're inevitably going to get to.
Yeah.
20 years, 30 years, 50 years,
whatever that time frame is.
Yeah. what we as society and as individuals and humans place our value on, which is our work to earn the money to give us to be able to do the other things. How do you?
Money has to go away.
Yeah, but how can money go? How can money go away? Because money is just an accounting thing, right? Because it's a store of value, is what it is, right?
So it's Star Trek.
I didn't watch Star Trek.
So Star Trek, they didn't have money, right? Because the technology basically provided all the things necessary for humans. So then humans started doing other things. They started.
So you could get whatever you wanted whenever you needed it.
They literally had a machine that would be like, "Hey, I need you to make me this," and it would make it. Food, an item for you to carry, whatever. Right? It knew how to reconfigure atoms to.
Oh, so if we get there, when we get there, right? But it's like, but say we don't get there to where we can't just have anything that we want at the will, and it's got to be produced in some way. So there has to be a trade. There has to be a barter of value of some kind. Like you can't just get rid of. We didn't just make money. Money just was an evolution off of the trading of value.
Yeah, so that's fair.
So it's like.
But here's the thing, though. Like when you talk, the trading of value only makes sense when you're talking about you and I, human to human. Mm-hmm. I care about the trade and value that you give to me.
Okay.
Right. If this is if we're talking about now a machine, the machine doesn't care about the trade and value. They don't care about equilibrium.
Okay.
The machine can be told what to do and it will just do it.
Sure.
And it can provide more value than we give it.
And whoever makes the machines or that technology runs and controls that, what's their incentive if they don't have, there's nothing, like how does that end up working?
In theory, okay, so in theory, the machines will be able to manage themselves over time. Given enough time, if AI does proceed in the way that it's going, it will be able to manage itself.
So then what happens to all the people who have all the money in the world, like the top 1%? You think they're just going to...
I'm sure they'll find another way to have power. It's not about the money. It's about the power, right?
That money provides.
Correct.
Yes.
So if there's another way where they can exchange that money for power, then that's probably what will happen. It will identify, become a part of the Senate or whatever it is, right? Palpatine themselves or something like that, whatever it is. I don't know what the answer is.
The chamber would be so big.
But I guess, there's money's probably not going to go away. There'll probably be some level of trade to some degree, but it will just be less relevant with regard to the basic necessities of mankind, right? Like machines in theory will be able to provide for the basic necessities of mankind. So it will be able to, assuming that there are materials, because, okay, if machines can mine the materials and then take those materials and turn them into ores, and then turn those ores and make those actual like textiles, and then turn those textiles into a building, a house, whatever the case may be, or just any other widgets, like the whole process for manufacturing things goes away. It's not the responsibility of humans to do that anymore. Humans may just oversee some of that process. Maybe they'll put in their 2 cents. Maybe they'll adjust it to go one way or another. But generally speaking, that process will be essentially taken. It won't be necessary for humans to do. Maybe the only thing that would be you may have to figure out is like the energy required to process all that stuff. But in theory, if they can do all that stuff, they could probably figure out how to build energy sources that will fuel all of that activity, right? So if they're able to do all of that stuff, assuming that they don't want to completely take over, because that's also a very real possibility, or it goes bizarro world where they think the best way to safeguard humanity is to turn us into batteries, and then we have the Matrix, right? Which is the theory that I've heard before.
Yeah.
That was the robots trying to safeguard humans from themselves. But assuming that none of that happens and humans are able to coexist with these AI style robots, then there would not be a need for humans to have money for their basic necessities. Those things will just be provided, right? The question then becomes like, what other things can humans now do that because in order for, at least as far as I can tell, we need purpose. Humans need purpose.
Yeah.
We can't just sit and just not have anything to do. We need purpose. So then the trick becomes like, what exactly do we do with our time now that we have all of the basic necessities covered? We have housing, we have food, we don't really have a need for money for basic necessities. Maybe money is necessary for doing other bigger things that are outside the purview of the basic requirements, basic necessities. But now that starts to, if we have all that, then we would be able to also be more space-faring people, because we can build all that stuff. All that stuff can be made by robots.
Yeah.
Right? And then we can potentially explore and go do all kinds of stuff. Now, there we would be back to needing trade, because we're going to probably run into, assuming aliens exist and they're friendly, we may have to trade with them in some capacity.
Yeah.
But our money's not going to be any value to them. It'll probably be technology or knowledge or something like that. So, I mean, this is way far future.
I mean, we did just bring in Star Trek. So not that far off.
But I mean, the thing is that money has to essentially, for the most part, go away.
Like, I mean, I would say it's not unthinkable, right? Because when you think about it, right, science fiction dictates science. It dictates where we go. Like,
highly influential.
Yes. Everybody thinks that, like, we think of, like, we've gotten these things and that's how we got these science. It's like, no, it's like science fiction. You dream something that's going to happen.
Yeah, and then we figure out a way to make
it happen, right? It like leads the way.
How do we make it real? Right.
The fact that it was showcased that way, I mean, somebody out there is going to be thinking at some point, right, how that could happen.
I mean, it'll probably first start with some kind of a UBI style, right, where there's sort of like a basic income.
And I mean, even if that's not a permanent thing, that's the transition.
That's most likely going to be the transition, right? There'll be some kind of UBI element, and you get a certain amount of credits for your basic necessities, and you trade those credits for those basic necessities, right? Eventually, the UBI won't be necessary because those basic necessities will just be provided. Right? Maybe they keep it. Who knows? I have no idea how they're ultimately going to do it. Maybe there's a requirement. You have to participate in society in some capacity in order for you to qualify for the UBI.
I guess, it's just because we're in the system we're in. But then I start thinking, but then how do you, like, well, what if I want to go and take a 10-day cruise? But there's still a supply and demand issue, right? And how, unless it's just a time, it's like, but how do you, like, what if I wanted a jet? Like, how do I get to determine that I want a jet?
What do you mean? I don't understand what you're asking.
Like, right now, I can't buy a jet because I can't afford a jet.
Yeah.
Right? But if there was no money, right, how many people do you think would want a jet? So, like, how do you...
You'd be thinking differently, though.
I guess, and maybe we just got to get there.
Because I mean,
how do you trade that? How do you trade, like?
I think the mindset would be different, because the likelihood is that if money doesn't exist because everything's provided, let's assume everything's provided, then jets.
We just go and gallivant off everywhere we want to go.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I could skip to that.
But I mean, theoretically, there would be flights everywhere, on jets, on helicopters, on trains. Those would just exist, and you just go and you sign in and you go. My guess is that there's going to be
teleportation.
The what?
I haven't said teleportation.
My guess would be that there'd be some basic necessities that would be covered, and then everything else that you probably have to trade for those, those extravagant elements. Like, I want to take a jet to the Galapagos Islands or whatever the case may be, right? So, but I don't know what that's going to look like. I have no idea. I mean, that could be catastrophic. We may start going in that direction and find that humans don't do well without some kind of a barter system, because it's like they did this experiment with monkeys where, like, if there's not if they don't feel like things are fair, like they get
mad,
highly aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're selfish creatures.
We are. So I don't know if that model will work. It's a theory, right? And in our head, oh yeah, this is sort of the utopia, right? But utopia is never. All of the utopia models are all like problematic.
The question isn't what's going to happen to money. The question is we can solve job losses and there not being enough, like there's no jobs for people to earn money. We can solve that by a UBI, like whatever that is.
That causes other issues.
But we can solve it from that. But what we can't solve is the question that's still out there is, that's the crux of it, is that how do we then, as individuals and humans, deliver value? Because value is what's tradable.
Yes.
Right. But so I think if we're not earning a currency or a unit of domination or something back for the value that we bring, and we're just giving value, unless the mindset is just like we just give the value, and then we just know that in some grand scheme that value is coming back to me. It's not coming back as a one-to-one, because everybody else is just giving their value.
When you say giving their value, I don't know.
Whatever the value is at that point is what I'm saying.
But how's that? I'm sorry. Are you talking about the UBI?
I'm just talking about getting rid of money, of the unit, because when we get money, we tie that that's representative of the value that we delivered, whether that was through a product or through a service, right? So if there is no money, and let's just, whatever the value to us as humans would be in delivering that then, because I don't know what it would be, right? But like, it's hard to use what we're doing now because we work, but we're saying that in the future that there might not be any work,
right?
But if we want to do things, then it's like we still like.
Well, there's no work. There was. I'm sorry, real quick, just for reference, when we were tribal, right?
Why do I keep having like words?
When we were tribal, the work that we had was very limited. Like a lot of the stuff that humans did was just hang out in the with the tribe. There was obviously hunting and gathering, and there were some things that they maybe had some responsibilities to keep up in the tribe or whatever. But generally speaking, there wasn't like a ton of work. Like people didn't have 9 to 5.
Sure, yeah.
Right. There wasn't like that. Oh, work all day and then stress at nighttime or whatever. So I think we'll probably go back to a lot of those things, like going back to getting reconnected with the earth and nature, and finding ourselves, and identifying key elements that were very important to us with our ancestors that we've lost. I think we'll go back to a lot of that stuff, and it's not to say that is going to be without its own set of challenges,
sure.
But I think that's likely to be the case. We're going to just go back to a lot of those kinds of things, right? Getting back to those kinds of things and try to understand the universe. And I mean, that the average person looks in the sky, has no idea what stars are in the sky, but our ancestors had a very clear understanding of the stars that were in the sky. Mm-hmm. And, for all that we know about space and the world around us and stuff like that, in terms of science, the average human doesn't know any of that stuff, right? I'm very limited in my knowledge. And I feel like I really try to keep up with a lot of that stuff. And I feel like I'm very limited because I'm not constantly looking in the sky to look at the stars and how things are moving. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that has to do with the pace of my life and where our world is now. And I just don't take the time to carve that out. Yeah. But if I don't have any real responsibilities in that capacity, I have time. I would have time to do that. I would have time to, on a nightly basis, kind of see that, oh, that star is like always there, but like it's always kind of ticking up. Maybe that's not a star. That may be a planet, right? Now I'm thinking about that.
Maybe the world isn't flat.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyways, I think that there'll be a lot of tribal elements that will be reintroduced into humanity, which could be beneficial. It could also be, problematic because there are some tribal elements of humanity that are problematic. But generally speaking, I think there would be some cool things. Sounds like there's a party next door, and we got to wrap up.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. I mean, final thoughts on that?
No, I think I'm good there. I was going to ask, just your quick thoughts, because we started off with economics. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on not just the data that we were talking about, but what are your thoughts on the firing of the labor statistics person,
the lady? I forgot. I don't remember
her name.
I don't know I don't. It sounded like a knee-jerk reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the intricacies of like what her past is or anything like that. The news has been kind of all over the place in terms of like the rationale or reason. My understanding was that he fired her because yes, there was a big adjustment to the jobs report that was substantial, significant, and that happened last year too. Apparently, there've been a lot of major adjustments that. So I don't know enough about that job to know whether or not is that normal or is that is that a reasonable reason to fire that role. So I don't really have a firm opinion on that. I would need to learn more about like what is the expectation of that role, and is it normal to have these swings for adjustments as it relates to the labor market? Because I think the initial projection was like 150 to 175.
150, and for June and
that was the expectation.
2 months, yeah, that's what was reported, and then they readjusted. I think readjusted down to like 15.
Right, which is substantial.
Yeah.
Like what? How did they? But I don't know if that is that because of her oversight, or was that what happened there? Like I would want to understand what happened there. So my response would be I would probably put her on like not knowing. I would probably be like, okay, I need you to put you on leave, and we need to do an investigation on what's going on here. Like, I need to understand why is there such a huge swing, and then figure out, okay, explain to me exactly what's happening here. Why is it we went from, in the six figures to 15,000? Like, what the hell had just happened? Right? I would want to understand that, and I don't have any understanding of that, so I don't really have an opinion as to whether or not that was a good call or a bad call. Knowing Trump, it probably was, he tends to shoot at the hip. And I think that may have been a shoot at the hip moment that would probably not I don't know that I would have necessarily fired someone just so abruptly like that. I would have wanted to understand more before I made that call. That's me.
Yeah.
So unless there's other things, maybe he's already had conversations with her, and this is a last straw element, which is why he let her go. I don't know. So that's my position on it. Which basically says I don't really have.
You don't have a position, which we've talked about. It's okay not having positions.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you hanging out, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, this is the Anomaly Podcast. I appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you're seeing, please like, please share, please comment. If you have anything that you want us to kind of talk about or discuss, please feel free to leave a comment below. Let us know, and we're happy to throw that in. So anyways, my name's Gus.
I'm Chris.
And this is us. I appreciate you guys. Peace.
Later.